Alright, we are recording for the prologue of The Search for Spock, which is the final part of this book, which has the Star Trek trilogy in it. Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home, final part. And it's also the fourth movie novelization overall, because there was a motion picture before. Alright, this, like the other two novelizations, was written by Vonda McIntyre, and it's Vonda. At least based on the prior two books, since it's only, prior two stories. It's only this book that I'm familiar with her writing for. But she continues to do a good job of having a lot said very effectively. Without the chapter, I mean, it might be longer than the average length of chapters in other books, but it's still, it doesn't feel that long, yet there's still a lot of information inside. So let me read these highlights. Concerning the Traveler, which is apparently the name for the object or entity that, the probe, that, if you know the movie, is causing all the problems. Excuse me. The Traveler sent each finished song into the vacuum it's going around singing. In return, it received new songs from other beings. Thus it wove a network of communication across the galaxy. Oblivious to the distances, it connected many species of sentient creatures one with the other. The Traveler followed a long curve, spiraling inward from the perimeter of the galaxy to the center, then spiraling outward again. It traveled through eons, embroidering its course with the music of intelligence. So I appreciate this because it's like, okay, now I'm understanding what the hell the thing is doing. It's never really explained in the movie, which is fine. Because in the movie, it being this nameless, unexplained mystery that is just devastating everything around it, accidentally, it's not malicious at all. It's just having this effect. It's actually a very interesting concept, and it's fine to do. But it is also that there is a problem here with the whole traveling for eons and all that, which, as I read the next highlight, may make clear. It's a longer highlight, though, just so you know. But if any of its threads of communication parted, grief and agony possessed it. When the song of one of its entities changed from delight and discovery to distress and confusion, pain and fear, the Traveler listened, it decided, and it gathered up the tremendous energy it needed to change its course. Singing reassurance, the Traveler turned toward the other side of the galaxy, toward a small blue planet circling an ordinary yellow sun. Couple things there. First, it's a white sun. Let's get this right, please. It only looks yellow because of dust in the atmosphere, but the sun is in fact white, evidenced by the fact that snow, which is only going to be reflecting that light, is white. Okay. There's also the actual... so fun fact. There is no such thing as a green star. The reason for that is because of how black body radiation works. All stars emit light via black body radiation, which is just something gets really hot, it starts glowing. It starts just glowing light, right? And the shape of the frequency curve for that is the normal curve, so just the bell curve, right? The center of it is based on the temperature involved. Also, I think potentially on the material, but temperature, right? Well, what color? Okay. So, colder temperatures is going to be in the infrared. Higher temperatures, it could potentially be higher temperatures, it would be into ultraviolet. You're not going to see that. So, then there's red stars, where it's like, it's colder, blue stars, it's hotter. What's at the center of the visible spectrum? Green light. This is why there can never be a green star, because if that curve is centered on the green, then it's spanning the whole spectrum of visible light. And what do you get when you add up every color of the visible spectrum? White light. So that's why it is not possible to have a green star, because it's not possible for black body radiation to produce green light in that way. So, yeah. But anyway, yes, it is not a yellow star. The sun is warm enough to be centered in there, so it's a white star. Although, to be fair, it does also vary at times, but it's white. Alright, so the other thing is, it's describing, alright, I'm cruising through the galaxy. I'm singing my song. I'm getting these songs back. Cool. Hey, that species I sang with before, it's having trouble. I'm going to come over and see what I can do. Maybe I'm just singing reassurance, but I'm still going to come over. How long is that going to take? Well, at least based on this, we can reason out, centuries, because in the movie, it says that they were hunted to extinction in the 90s. The humpback whale was hunted to extinction in the 90s. But that the events of Star Trek are largely in the 23rd century. So about 200 years later. And also, Khan, it was 200 years ago that he was up and around. And that was... I don't think that was... No, maybe that was also the 90s. I don't remember now. But still, it's like, it's about the same time frame. So it's going to take 2 centuries. As though that's going to be enough time. As though, it's not going to die out in that period of time. It's like, it's kind of stupid. And, Vonda? It's over there. Vonda? You do a good job. You really do. But, this doesn't work. It just... The thing is going to have encountered this before, where it arrives at a planet and it's like, oh, the species is extinct. Why would it stick around? I'm saying, it may get explained, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it does get explained, because right now it's just like, man, whenever this comes up, you're probably getting there too late, Traveler. Alright, moving on. But also check my notes. Just to make sure. Okay. So we got Kirk, he's pacing back and forth. McCoy is there as well. Kirk wants to talk to Talar, who is the high priestess that did the ritual, and is mentioned just 3 days ago, which is actually kind of important. Oh, where is it said? Okay. I'm not spotting it, but anyway. Well, basically, Kirk wants to know Spock is good before they can leave, and that's why he wants to talk to Talar, because he also very much wants to get back to Earth to sort things out. He knows he's done a lot of things that are going to piss people off, and he wants to, and it's like, but hey, Spock's alive, the mission is done, time to go home and face the music. You've had word from Starfleet? Bones asks. No, but we've got to return to Earth. At least I do. I have to answer for my actions. For disobeying orders, for losing the Enterprise. You won't be alone, McCoy said. I don't want anybody to try to be a hero for my sake, Jim said. I bear the responsibility. Who's talking about taking responsibility, McCoy said. I'm talking about getting off Vulcan. Jim, this damned gravity is squashing me. If I have to live in it much longer, I'll turn into a puddle of protoplasm. Jim laughed. That's more like it, Bones. I didn't highlight it, but McCoy has not quite... He's been very tired ever since the ritual, which isn't too surprising, because he wasn't meant to ever be done with a human. And so Kirk is just relieved that, okay, there's some of that wit that I know from him. So it's like he is being himself, even if he is physically weakened at the moment, because he's still recovering. Okay, he's fine. Still got to worry about Spock. So Tomei, who is the student adept who was talking with Amanda and is kind of stupid. Sorry, but she is, because it's like, oh, it's such a pity that you can't go and witness this ritual, Amanda. It's like, if I went there, my presence might kill my son. I'm not doing that. I love him too much. It's like, I don't understand this. It's like, what? Why would that be? It's like, dude, I'm sorry. I finished writing up the Search for Spock review, and I had to include this in there. It's like, I reject the idea that Sarek is so unique of Vulcans that he's the only one who loves his son. To me, it doesn't matter. Even if she doesn't have kids, she should still have an understanding that, no, you love your kid. And it's torturous for Amanda not to be able to be there, but she knows she can't be because her presence would endanger Spock. And Tomei should be able to respect that. But anyway, here she is. And she's like come to get them. And Kirk is like, great. And McCoy's like, all right, tell me what it's about. Tell me how it goes. And Tomei's like, actually, I was sent here to escort you, not him. Huh? So, get to Talar, who's now speaking. But you, McCoy, were not properly prepared to accept the transfer. I've determined that he retains certain elements of your psyche and certain elements of his personality and his mind remain in your keeping. Where is it? Yeah. What if I prefer not to undergo another mind meld? They don't need to go through the full ritual, just a mind meld so their personalities can sort themselves out with her as a conduit. What if I do not go through it? You will cripple Spock. What about McCoy? Jim said. I think it likely that the force of Spock's psychological energy will once again possess McCoy as it did when he held Spock's Katra. So it's basically, they'll revert. Spock will be crippled, which may also cost him his life to a degree. It's kind of how I put in the notes. And McCoy will just go insane again. That's not so good. But I also have a line in here that's like... Oh, here, let me read it. Why must you humans involve yourself in matters you cannot affect? Talar said. Because Kirk wants to come with Bones, and she's like, no. But says that. And it's just... I wrote up, as I said, the review today, finished that up. And one of the things I also wrote in there was how Sarek, like many Vulcans, is racist. I mean, just, it is the case. And I do also give some defense to the Vulcans in there for, like, why they're racist, the origin of their racism, but also that their racism is they believe themselves are superior to other species, such as to humans. But that's how it exists for them, is that they believe themselves superior, so normal people cannot do superior things like they can. Part of the reason I wrote that in there was also because I hate the depiction of Vulcans in Enterprise that do seem to be a different flavor of racism, which is that they believe the other species are inferior. And how is that different? If it's like, well, how is it different for one to believe that they are superior? How's that different from one believing that others are inferior? Superior can believe that somebody who's normal just cannot do superior things. Somebody who believes that they are others are inferior, though, believe that the inferior people cannot achieve even normal things. Okay, that is the difference. It's pushing up versus pushing down, I guess is the way to put it. And this definitely still seems that kind of superiority there. Why must you humans involve yourself in matters you cannot affect? Well, my response to that would be, how can something be affected if people do not involve themselves? It's like, I mean, you're basically saying that, oh yeah, it's only worth doing if you know it'll work. It's like, but you don't know if it'll work until you actually try it. It's an incredibly stupid attitude and illogical. I guess that would be like saying that a boulder that has a piece of wood placed underneath it, a propped up piece of wood that is placed underneath it, will not move unless somebody decides to do something bad. It's like, well, or that it will not be moved by a single person. It's like, well, no, but if you get enough people on the lever, because that's what I was trying to describe there, then it will. But it's like, you're not even going to bother trying because it's not, it would take more people to concern themselves than just one. I mean, it's really stupid and not logical. All right. One thing I kind of like here, Admiral Kirk. Well, okay, so Bones is in there with the mind meld. Kirk is now pacing in the anteroom. And somebody comes up. Admiral Kirk, Jim started, rising to his feet. Admiral Cartwright, the new commander of Starfleet, entered the anteroom. Cartwright offered his hand. Jim took it warily. There's more to this highlight, but I just want to stop and be like, yes, Rivera is out. He was incompetent. All right, he was really bad. I'm glad he's gone. And we got Cartwright, which, yes, he's in Voyage Home, although I don't remember if he's actually named in the movie or not. But he is certainly there. wasn't aware he was the commander of Starfleet at this time, however. He is that in Undiscovered Country. He's referred to as the CNC. Actually, I'm trying to remember if it was him that was referred to as the CNC, or if it was the guy seated next to him. Either way, though, he is an admiral in both movies, but I wasn't aware of his specific position in Starfleet until now. Anyway, what are you doing on Vulcan, Jim said. I came to talk to you, of course. I want to know what happened straight from you, not from reports or gossip, or even from Harry Moreau. You left him one hell of a mess to end his tenure, and to begin yours. It comes with the job. I'm kind of wondering, though, was this a... Moreau was legitimately just, I'm 3 days from retirement kind of thing? And yeah, oh yeah, that's right, because it was stated at some point here, it's been 3 days since the ritual. Let me see if I can spot it. I know it was in here. I know it was in here somewhere. But I didn't highlight it, and I wish I had. Because, I mean, it's just, if it was, he was 3 days from retirement, that's one thing. But if it was, nah, he'd been fired. It's like, good, he needed to be fired. He was not competent. But it is also curious, well, okay, no. It's not that curious. I'm not going to spot it if I'm also talking at the same time. You know, I have to find this. I have to find this. I'm just going to pause until I find it. Found it. I don't care if I see Talar or not, Jim said, but they've had Spock practically incommunicado for 3 days. I want to be sure he's all right. Okay, I am assuming it has only been 3 days since the ritual. I think that also does stand up for other reasons, just other events that will also be mentioned in this prologue. Okay, I'm just trying to catch up to where I was. But yeah, so 3 days. So yeah, if Moreau got fired, good. Because I mean, it's like, yeah. Kirk, we don't leave our friends behind. We don't leave our people behind. Moreau, yeah, we do. Cartwright, I don't know. But one thing is that if Moreau is gone, a lot of this can be erased just because of that. Not all of it, but a lot. So there was some nice back and forth here, and basically, by nice, I'm not referring to Vonda, I'm referring to how they are communicating. With Cartwright basically being like, look, we need you to come back, we need you to answer questions, okay? Because a lot has happened, a lot's going on. And that, you know, if you come, give an explanation, you might be able to just explain yourself, everything's done. Everything just goes away from that. If not, you'll face a criminal trial. On what charge? Jim said, shocked. The murder of Commander Krug, amongst other things. Murder? That's preposterous. I tried to get him off Genesis, and he tried to pull me into a pit of molten lava. Krug invaded Federation space. He destroyed a merchant ship. He instigated espionage. He destroyed the Grissom and everyone on board. He killed David Marcus. Jim's voice faltered. But it is... It's one of those things that, geopolitically speaking, the clans have to do something. Because, they either need to disavow Krug entirely, or, no, they need to press that you murdered him. With the full expectation that this will just be sufficient answer given, and people will just forget about it. But it's also, if you do that, then you might be able to claim, hey, you need to give us the ship back. Maybe they get a scalp. Very doubtful, though. Because, I mean, you know, exactly the stuff that was mentioned. A very easy argument could just be, he violated so many rules. All Kirk did, well, technically acting outside of orders, but still, he basically just protected the Federation, which is his responsibility as a member of Starfleet. let alone an officer, let alone an admiral of Starfleet. There was no crime here except for Krugs. Go away now. But it still is. The Klingons got to do something because they have to try to save face. They have to appear active in some way, unless they just disavow. And that is not really viable, especially with the ship. I can believe that is a critical reason why we got to prosecute this. We have to push this because we need to see if we can get that back. Yeah. If you refuse, the assumption will be that you've no answer to the Klingon Empire's claims. It's also kind of stupid because it's like, can't you just do some of this on Vulcan? I mean, you can just come in and talk to them there, but anyhow, I mean, like Cartwright has. Yeah, it's still, or Kirk file an official report. It's one of those things where I can't fault the story too much, but it is normal people can recognize what's going on here and be like, you know what, I get it. You can wait on Vulcan. We'll have somebody there that will take your statement, all that. You're still gonna have to come to an inquiry. Gonna have to do all that, but we'll at least take that and just get the ball rolling. We get it. You did all this to save your friend. You want to make sure he's okay before you leave. That's fair, all right. But the Federation is likely a bureaucracy to some degree, which means it exists to satisfy the bureaucracy, not to satisfy people. Anyway, what's the last thing? Oh, yeah. So, Cartwright leaves after giving a copy of the inquiry order, basically saying, dude, that's the date, you arrive, or else. He was hoping to not have to give it to me, and kind of the whole, oh man, I know that there's television and movies that do it, where somebody's talking with a lawyer, and then eventually the lawyer, like, once they stop being responsive, pulls out the subpoena and hands it to him. It's like, well, you have to come now. And I think warrants are sometimes also, in media, served that way. Where it's like, yeah, you're helpful, but you know what? Now you stop being helpful, here's the warrant. Which one thing I do wonder a little bit about with that is it considered inappropriate to be like, yeah, I want the warrant, but mainly just so I know there's the paperwork? Because, I mean, you might be like, look, I'm good with answering all your questions and letting you take what evidence you want, but I want the paperwork, so give me the warrant. I could see that being the case for some people, where it's like, no, you have to go through all, dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure you do all that. Anyway, Cartwright is left, Jim's there, Bones comes out. Haven't they completed the process? Well, it's over for the moment. Haven't they completed the process? McCoy shrugged. Is something wrong? Vulcans jump up and walk away after mind melt, the doctor said. I shouldn't be any different, right? Jim smiled. Right? McCoy fainted. I like that. I just like that. So now we get Kirk in his quarters, and this is interesting. He had been trying to call Carol Marcus since the morning after his arrival on Vulcan. Every time he had failed to reach her, but by now she must know of the death of her son David. He both relieved and distressed Jim that he would not be the one to tell her, but he had to talk to her. So when I first read this, hang on, I just want to check where I am in the notes. Okay, no. This is, and also I will mention right now, because we do get to Saavik a little later, she is also trying to contact Carol and talk to her about David. But neither of them are getting through. And Saavik is actually is starting to think that this is intentional, that she potentially doesn't want to talk to anyone from the Genesis expedition. While Kirk here is potentially thinking something similar, that I'm just the last person she wants to talk to right now. Which is a reasonable assumption when taken from the center of the universe mentality, I guess is a way to put it, versus just there's any number of reasons why she is not able to pick up the phone. It kind of reminds me of something 16 years ago. Oh man, it's weird to remember some of this stuff is that long ago. Anyway, had a friend who we worked together, and at one point she had another friend come and visit at work. Cool, met him, all that. And after he left, I asked, was that your boyfriend? She's like, no, that's not. And it occurred to me when she said it, it's like, why would I assume that? I'm saying, why would I assume that? I mean, it's like, she certainly has many friends. I'm a friend. She certainly has many friends. Why would I assume that the one that came to visit would have to be the boyfriend? And it's kind of like that here as well. It's easiest to think that it is the most significant to one person or the other as the reason for some event. So it's the most significant to Kirk, that reason that Carol doesn't want to talk to him, or Saavik, that she doesn't want to talk to anyone associated with the expedition. Why we just naturally tend to that, I don't know. But it is an interesting psychological phenomenon. Because it's like, it's not, it might seem the most reasonable, but it's also the least common, the least likely. And also, in this case, the incorrect reason. Carol, it had been set up in the previous story, in Search for Spock, has been traveling around to personally speak to everybody's family. All the people on the Genesis team that were murdered back in Wrath of Khan, she is going to visit their families and is bringing their bodies with her. Okay? So it's like she is personally apologizing and explaining to them while delivering the remains. And she had, why she wouldn't have gotten any messages on this ship, don't know. But she's arrived on Delta. Carol Marcus felt it her duty to speak to the families of her friends and co-workers on the Genesis project. So she has come to Delta because two of the scientists were Deltans. One was disintegrated by a phaser blast, and so there's no body, but the other, they got a body for. And one thing curious, because we're continuing with the whole thing set up in the motion picture, about Deltans being an incredibly intimate species, that they would be partners. Hang on, let me just... they'd formed a professional and economic and sexual partnership that should have lasted for decades. Not just the two scientists who were with them, but these two others on Delta that she's now visiting. And for anyone wondering, it just occurred to me, for anyone wondering if they were partners, why weren't they also on Space Lab? It is stated during Wrath of Khan that a lot of the lab was on vacation. So that's also why there was so fewer people there than you might expect. Just in general, that it's like a handful of scientists and then a couple like maintenance people. That's why everyone was on vacation. So potentially these two were on vacation, the other two were staying on Space Lab. But what I put into my notes is that maybe it is appropriate that it is on Delta, because so neither of the Deltans, and by the way, I'm not going to try to pronounce any of their names. But neither of the Deltans on Space Lab would ever allow a human to touch them. This wasn't meant to be cruel. It's in fact meant to protect them, because they have a level of telepathy that, or empathiveness, like how Vulcans can do the mind meld if they touch you, well, touch your face, touch your head. The Deltans can achieve an emotional link through touch as well, and so they avoid physical contact with humans because they're not really going to understand it, and things like that. It's not appropriate. But they know about David's death, and she's unaware. You've not been in contact with Earth. No, not since I left. She'd never been touched by a Deltan before, but because both of them here. In this, two Deltans, one Space Lab, male and female. Two Deltans here, male and female. These two are both actually touching her now. Both grief and comfort flowed into her. I'm sorry, she said. Tears sprang to her eyes. Your partners, we know, Virai said. So I had to say one of them. And we are so grateful that you came to us. We will speak of them and remember them. But we must speak of someone else as well. Holding Carol's hands, Virai and Kirim told her of the death of her son. So, in a way, because of that emotional link there, I can believe this is actually going to be helpful for her. That there will not be pretense, there will not be secrets there, that they are honestly, intrinsically honest because of the emotional connection, honestly grieve with her. So yeah, I think that will help. We shall see. Yeah, I also don't know how much she may appear at all later. Carol, it's possible that she, because the prologue very nearly ends at a. Is it the first scene for Search for Spock? No, because I think we first see the Traveler going by, but the scene with Spock at the computer terminals. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll just be in the next chapter. We might have a different scene replacing that, which, if that is the case, I do like the one in the book better, but need to get to that. Now we get to Savik's portion here. Perhaps, thought the young Vulcan, Dr. Marcus will never speak to me or to anyone else who participated in the Genesis expedition. There's only one of you, but anyway. Everyone else is dead, Savik. Who's left? She must know of David's death by now. It is possible that she has no wish to be reminded of it by those who witnessed it. So she leaves and, well, she hears footsteps. And it's like, those are heavy footsteps. They gotta be humans, because Vulcans walk much more silently. So she steps out expecting to run into somebody that she knows, and instead it's Cartwright. And they talk a little bit. The indictment, sir? Surely Admiral Kirk and his shipmates aren't to be punished for saving Spock's life. I hope not. I hope not. Despite everything, I hope not. I, too, am alive because of the Admiral's actions. Had Admiral Moreau permitted him to depart for the Genesis world without delay, the science vessel Grissom and all hands might have been saved as well. It isn't your place to second-guess the commander of Starfleet, Cartwright said. There is more here, but I do just... The way I even put in my notes is he's not listening, okay? In his defense, though, this is not the time to be listening. She, at the inquiry, would be completely in her rights to... I mean, if she were questioned, to respond in that way. To say that he was delayed, that Kirk's actions were delayed. I'm saying, you're saying he defied orders. The orders he defied, if they had his order not to go, if that had never been given, a lot of this would never have happened. And it comes down to that fundamental thing. Moreau was abandoning people to their fates instead of not leaving people behind. I'm glad he's gone. But that is part of the whole. With Moreau gone, they can sweep a lot of this away. We will see. We'll see how some of that works out later. But right now is not the time for that, so I'll give Cartwright that credit. Yeah. And there's also that element of it's not to your place to second guess. It's like, kind of is. I mean, if done respectfully, and is the whole... what if Moreau had actually committed a crime here? Because then it becomes a... Isn't she supposed to? Anyhow. Let's get back to this. The Genesis project, this is still Cartwright speaking, was a disaster. But your part in it was fully admirable. That won't be forgotten, I promise you. This whole trading of favors thing that Moreau... Well, it was implied Moreau was doing with Sulu. I don't like that we're seeing it continue with Cartwright, but anyway. I do not look for credit from these events, she said. Too many people lost their lives. A survivor should not gain benefit. Especially, she thought, a Starfleet officer who survived because of the death of a civilian. They reached the transporter. I'm going to get back to that one, by the way. They reached the transporter room. Cartwright programmed in a set of coordinates and climbed onto the platform. Nobody will get much benefit out of Genesis, Cartwright said grimly. But that isn't your concern. I'll trust you to comport yourself as well during your Vulcan assignment as you did on Genesis. Goodbye, Lieutenant. Energize. What Vulcan assignment? But he's gone. So, I do wonder a little bit about this, and she's even speculating, does he actually mean just while I'm hanging out here until I get new orders? It's... What I would appreciate, I would love if this were the case, I don't know, is if Sarek said to Starfleet, I want her assigned here. Why? I want her assigned here. Because, and I'm pretty sure I put this, did I? Yes, I did. I did put it into the review for Search for Spock. She was so afraid of not being invited there. That's why she never went to Vulcan, but now she was forced to go there, and she's actually enjoying it. She hopes she will have the opportunity to walk its deserts and its cities. And I hope that Sarek, in part as thanks for, because she was part of the whole adventure. And also, there's an element of, and I think this might more so be with Amanda, Spock's mother, that Saavik meant something to Spock. That Spock was her mentor, was something of a father figure, that there was a relationship there, a love there. Platonic, but a love there nonetheless. And, like, even if they didn't save Spock, I could still very much see Amanda being like, I want you here, because I want to be able to hear from you about Spock, and I want to be able to tell you about Spock. So, yeah, I do really hope there is something like Sarek arranged this because wants the opportunity, and also potentially as this is your home. You should not feel that you need to be invited here. This is your home, and I'm keeping you here for a while to make sure you know that. So, yeah. So she's a little confused about everything that's going on and wants to talk to Kirk, so she goes to his quarters. And he's on the best of moods at the moment, in part because he just tried to contact Carol and failed. And she recognizes, oh, that's probably what happened. We're both trying to get in touch with her and failed. She also went to him figuring he probably knows about my orders. I mean, it's like, what did Cartwright say? You may know. She also sees that he's got the indictment, or the inquiry order, so it's like, okay, I don't need to tell him that. He knows that. All right. May I speak it with you? Certainly, Lieutenant. He rose. It is about David. He flinched. Tell me. She wanted to say, I should have died in his place. I am a member of Starfleet and he was a civilian, and I should have protected him. I could have protected him had he not acted when he should have restrained himself. This is a true statement. But for all Saavik's uncertainty about human beings and their often incomprehensible emotions, she knew as surely as she knew anything that she could not help James Kirk accept his son's death by saying he should not have died. David died most bravely, Saavik said. He saved Spock. He saved us all. I thought you should know. She also wanted to say, I loved your son. He taught me that I am capable of love. But that was not something a junior lieutenant could say to a flag officer of Starfleet, nor was it something someone trying to be a Vulcan should ever admit to anyone. She kept her silence. Her talking about how she should not be alive with David having died, a civilian having died, which that goes all the way back to Chapter 1 of Wrath of Khan, when she argued that point to Kirk, that even the least civilian should survive, and she die if that is the choice. But that's not the case here. That's not what happened, and it is because he should have restrained himself and didn't. David leapt up, and he took a fatal wound that perhaps she could have avoided. To be honest, I doubt it. I'll bet that if her plan had gone through, she'd be dead. She would have died, but David and Spock would have gotten some distance away before being recaptured, and yeah. That is wishful thinking on her part that she might be able to survive. But I will also say this, that She didn't need to consider herself as talking to Admiral Kirk, a flag officer of Starfleet, and she only a junior lieutenant. No. She could have seen it as, I am talking to David's father. And then she could have said all of that. Certainly that, even the whole, that she should have died instead of David. Because she is wrong for thinking that way, that survivor's guilt. It would help her grieve to admit it out loud, and Kirk probably also would try to comfort her. Perhaps even saying he may have been a civilian, but he wanted to save you. He wanted you to live. So do not consider it a waste. Do not consider it a bad decision, even. Unfortunate, yes, but all death is unfortunate. That kind of thing. Now, concerning the whole her not wanting to admit to loving him and learning from David that she is capable of love, she needs to say that to somebody. Maybe to Amanda. But part of what was so enjoyable about her character in Search for Spock was how much she was taking to heart what Spock had told her about finding her own path. She doesn't need to try to be Vulcan. Yes, she can apply some of the Vulcan practices to help her in her life, but David was teaching her that she was capable of love, and very likely if David had not died, their relationship would have continued and probably would have been successful. So it seems odd, the whole, oh, that isn't appropriate. It's like, woman, if none of that had happened, you'd not be hiding. You'd be talking about how you love David to the man because he's your father-in-law kind of thing. I mean, it is kind of silly there. And there is also an element of, he taught me that I'm capable of love. Kirk likely understands her well enough because he knows Spock, who went through some of the same stuff, not all, but some of the same stuff as she has, would probably actually see that as a great compliment. Would recognize that as meaning that this is somebody else who he can truly grieve for David with, because she loved him as well. Both of them barely knew David for any length of time. I mean, not even a week. But he was still so meaningful to both. And having that, knowing that's common between them, that's shared between them, he would value. Kirk would value. So, yeah. Alright, we get a little bit with Sulu here. He climbs into the bird of prey, does some looking around. And he also has a universal translator to figure out all the damage reports. Which actually reminds me of something, but continuing. Salvaging the fighter is worth a try, he thought, and if I succeed, I'll have a ship of my own. I hate the Sulu Excelsior stuff in Search for Spock. I consider it forced and contrived, and generally, it doesn't add anything to the story. So, yeah, really dislike that. But this I appreciate because there's a ship of my own. There's a certain element there, especially because of what it is. This might be him thinking, you know what? They screwed me over. I did this mission because Kirk needed me to. It's done now. Technically, some of what we did, not completely legal. Justifiable, in my opinion, but not completely legal. You know what? I'm glad I can retire. I don't need to be in Starfleet anymore. And it'll be really nice to have my own ship, because then I can do the thing I love, which is piloting a ship and doing whatever. It's like, don't know what I'll do with it, but hey, you know, So I like this, because to me, I am interpreting it a little bit as it's a way for him to leave. It's like, you know what? Bridges are burnt behind me. This is a new one. I'm good. I like that. But one thing that occurred to me, he settled into the command chair, tied a universal translator to the computer, and requested a complete set of damage reports. One of the ways I've seen described a universal translator working is like reading the brainwave patterns of the person who's talking and transmitting them into the person who's listening, so that it's just like the emotionally, all the emotions of it are coming through, and so you're getting it that way, which is stupid. I don't think that that's very valid. I don't think it really works all that well. But it also doesn't work with this because it's computer interface. There's no emotions there. There's no brainwave patterns. So, yeah. Let's just go with the universal translator. It's just a hand-wavy piece of technology where it's like, yes, we know aliens speak different languages than humans. That's fine. Here's this thing that solves that problem. Move on. Don't try to explain it. It's not worth trying to explain. Just move on. I'm good with that. Kind of like artificial gravity. We don't need to know how that actually works. We just need to know that it works and move on. Now, you can still use it in different ways, varying the power and all that. That's fine. And describing how it is interfaced into, how it's built into ships, that's fine too. But how it produces a gravitational field at the proper power and distribution, don't need any of that. We don't need specifics there. We need it to exist. Fine. Moving on. Some stuff in sci-fi, just hand wave it away, and it's all good. All right, now we're to about the end. Amanda is listening to Spock reading out loud from a fragile bound volume of ancient Vulcan poetry. She wanted to touch him to reassure herself that he was alive. Sorry, it just occurs to me he wasn't even dead for a week. And she never saw the body or anything like that. I kind of feel like, reassure herself that this isn't a dream kind of thing, or that nightmare did in fact end. It's like, just put it a little different. Anyway, he paused. Reading out loud is very slow, Mother, and the words of this piece are archaic. Try to hear the beauty in them, my dear, she said. No one on Vulcan writes poetry anymore. Those lines are 1,000 years old. If no one writes poetry, why must I read it? Because I didn't read it to you when you were a child. We have another chance, and I won't make the same mistake twice. I want you to be able to enjoy beauty and poetry and laughter. He does respond that is illogical. She's like, yes, it is. I am tired, Mother, he said. I will meditate. I will consider what you have said. Okay. Oh, no, okay. Now I see. So I was just seeing some of the next chapter, and it's like, why are we now talking about the Romulans? Is the Traveler coming through the Romulans? No. No, it's not the Travelers coming through the Romulans. It's just there's a dude patrolling the neutral zone there. And it's like, well, I have to, because you never know when they might come raiding. Okay. If that is I do not understand the question. Spock, the computers know you are half human. That is why they're asking you, how do you feel? That whole thing. I much prefer this, because there is such a more motherly touch to it. Well, human motherly touch. That I didn't share these things with you when you were a child before. In a way, you're relearning life again, so I want to try to make sure you value it now. It is sad, the idea that Vulcans stopped writing poetry. Because, is there not still logic in describing beauty in poems? Must it all be just a clinical, sterile description of any observation? I would hope not. That there is still Vulcan aesthetic that isn't sterile. That there is still Vulcan art, I would like to believe. But who knows? But yeah, so this I feel is a nicer way to have that reminder that Spock is half human, that it is from Amanda, and yeah, just that connection. I think that's a nicer way of doing it than just how do you feel. I get the movie doing it that way. I do, because it's a bit more assertive, because it is in this unhuman robotic voice saying these things to Spock, so it stands out. And also, it's like you get him answering all these different questions, so it's showing his immense intelligence, immense knowledge. And then how do you feel? This trips him up, because he's still very much being Vulcan here. He's not embracing his human side. I'm sure, we know that will develop. We do. And also the fact that it ended with him with the bridge crew, with the crew of the Enterprise, I think speaks a lot to, no, he has chosen his path to be that person again, that Spock, versus him going with the Vulcan priestesses, or priests and priestesses, that he did turn and go back to them. That is, he will be that Spock that we knew before, instead of just a straight Vulcan Spock, like what he at one point wanted to be. So it is kind of disappointing to see him returning back, but if we're putting the journey in this story, it makes sense to restart it back to the beginning, because it technically started a few days prior. Now we're just restarting, and it's like, I'm okay with that. It's not like, oh crap, what's a good example? I can only think of one, and it's a lousy one. But Force Awakens, where it's like, well, we want them to be underdogs again, so we're gonna basically say that Return of the Jedi was meaningless because the Republic is easily destroyed by another planet-killing device, and we have something that's basically the Empire again, that it's now in control of the galaxy. Not like that, where it's like, yeah, a few decades of stuff, we're just wiping that all out. That the thing that led it, it's all gone. It's like, no, this is a few days for a personal journey that we're just starting back at square one. That's fine. I get it. Understand. Yeah. So I'm okay with that, but it is hopefully we'll see how it goes. Because that is one thing where in the movie it is a bit more like Spock is just returning to who he is, but it's not like he's walking the path to it. It's just that's where he arrives. In this, however, one of the benefits of being a book is you can spend time in his head, and you can just spend time with him walking that path. Hopefully we'll get it, and I do look forward to that. Excuse me, I certainly do trust Vonda to be capable of writing such a path and writing it effectively. But yeah, this next chapter, though, will be interesting because we should get the answer for Saavik being assigned to Vulcan. What does that mean? What is that connected to and all that? How much time passes such that Kirk is heading back to Earth? What are the... How bad a situation is it with him not coming immediately? Things like that. So it will be interesting to see, but it'll also be interesting for another reason, because one of the things that I did criticize Search for Spock on was once you get chapter 4, which is like when the movie starts, the feeling of the story changed so much, and it felt far more constrained. It felt far more like Vonda was, you now have to actually follow the screenplay. You can't do your own stuff. I'm a good writer. I did a great job with Rathgun. Yes, you did, but we're making you do this. She had some freedom at times, but man, it felt different the moment it hit the movie. Here we're hitting the movie potentially much sooner, but it's still, hopefully, it gets to be more her there, where she can stay true to the movie, true to the screenplay, but is telling the story the way the way she can tell it. All right. Hey, it's under an hour at least, so that's good. See you next time.